I saw Captain America Brave New World, and I have some thoughts. So here we go. I'll start off with no spoilers, and then towards the end of the video, I'll talk about some spoiler thoughts. So if you haven't seen it, you can tune out then, or I guess keep watching if you don't care. I don't know. First, I think the new suit that Sam Wilson has is better than the one that he ended the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series with. There is not really a spoiler, but there is an incident early on in the movie where that suit gets damaged and he has a new one. I like that suit a lot better. I think Harrison Ford gave a really solid performance. Obviously, I mean, Harrison Ford is a good actor, but I feel like a lot of the movies he's been in recently felt kind of like he was phoning it in, which, like, you gotta get a paycheck. I mean, I guess I can't fault him for using his good name, but it just felt like you put a little more effort into this one, which I enjoyed. Also, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's all over the promotional material, but the fight with the Red Hulk was pretty nice. A couple things that caught me off guard a little bit, but I'll talk about those later. But overall, I think it was good. The CGI was good. There were a few moments. There's especially one moment towards the end that looks just really bad for some reason. And I don't know. I know this movie had apparently a lot of reshoots, and like reshoots aren't uncommon, but people make a big deal about it. And I think this is for the amount of drama that was around the reshoots on this movie, I think most of it was put together very well. But there is one specific shot towards the end of the film that it is very glaringly obvious that something was different about that than the rest of the movie. The storyline with Isaiah Bradley, I thought, was very nice, kind of the heart of the film. I wish they had done a bit more with it. It kind of gets overshadowed by a lot of other stuff that happens. But part of the trailer, you see that Isaiah Bradley attacks the president, and that incident is sort of the kicking off point for the plot of this movie. But yeah, that whole thing, I think, was very well done. And Carl Lumbly, who plays Isaiah Bradley, did a fantastic job as well. Anthony Mackie, of course, does a good job. I think he really sells the pressure of having to fill the shoes of Captain America, and I think obviously that's sort of crosses the boundaries between in the movie and out of the movie, because I think there's also a lot of expectations following Chris Evans, but I think in the movie it does a good job of showing that Sam trying to follow Steve Rogers they're big shoes to fill. And I'm not saying that he doesn't succeed. I think he makes a really good Captain America. But yeah, I just think the movie explores that in a way that was very satisfying. I think they really didn't use Giancarlo Esposito as much as they could have for such a good actor. I wish that, and he'll come back, I don't know, but it would have been beneficial to have him as a more prominent part of this film. There are two female characters that I think did not get enough development. There's a little bit of like cheat coding with a lot of the male characters because they were in previous projects, and so like we know Sam Wilson. We've had a whole series with him. Even Joaquin Torres was in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and although Thaddeus Ross was not played by Harrison Ford before, the character has been around since the first Incredible Hulk movie, which, like, it's these characters have mostly, we know them already, whereas these two new characters who I believe are named Lila and Ruth don't have that previous experience. So these are new characters that they're introducing us to, but we don't really get enough time to know either of them, and so they feel a little one note. And I feel like perhaps it could have been a little better if they combined them. If they had taken those two roles and made them one character, then the combined amount of screen time that those two characters had could have made for one really well-developed character. Marvel has a habit of teasing things and giving hints at things that either don't show up for a really long time or completely get forgotten about and never show up. And this is turned one of those things that I assumed was a forgotten thing into a came back in a really long time thing. There are a couple more recent things, but yeah, this movie does a lot of bringing things back from the past, which, like, I enjoyed, because if you just keep setting stuff up and never paying it off, that's a little disappointing. So I think it's time maybe we get into an era of Marvel where they start doing more of the payoff and less of the setup. That would make me happy, and it made me happy in this movie. But I think that is actually a good transition into the spoiler section. So I'll say again, if you haven't seen the movie, you should probably go see it before watching the rest of this video. But overall, it was okay. It wasn't groundbreaking. I know, obviously, everyone always wants to compare the more serious Marvel movies. They're like, oh, this is like the new Winter Soldier. This is the next Winter Soldier. And I can tell you right now, this movie is not as good as The Winter Soldier. But it is better than a lot of the other recent Marvel projects, to be quite honest. But yeah, so spoilers from here on out. I guess I'll talk about the stuff that came back. They finally referenced the giant dead Celestial from the Eternals movie. So that actually, it's not like a main thing in the movie. It's a set piece, really. Like, they talk about it. It's a plot point. It's an important plot point. But I'd say the biggest surprise is that this movie is very much kind of a sequel to the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk movie. They brought back, obviously, Ross is back, General Ross turned President Ross, but he's, like I said, he's been around. Things that I weren't expecting to come back is Betty Ross, who is obviously Bruce Banner's former love interest. I think it might have been interesting to see Bruce Banner in this movie, but I understand why they didn't. It's whatever. I do hope that we get to see Bruce Banner and these characters together in the future. I do think that is maybe a bit of a missed opportunity. But again, I understand why they didn't want to bring Hulk into this movie, because it really needed to be more about Sam Wilson being Captain America and passing the torch and all of that stuff, which is kind of what the show did. But getting off topic. In addition to Betty Ross, they also brought back the leader, who was from like the very end of the Hulk movie. It got teased with him, like he got a little bit of Banner's radioactive blood on him or in a cut or something, I don't remember, and obviously he messes with his brain. And so he in this movie has been imprisoned by Ross and has been kind of working behind the scenes this whole time, and it turns out that he's the one setting everything in motion, and he's figured out a way to like mind control people, which I like. Not to compare it again to The Winter Soldier, because again, it's not that good. But there is a moment in this movie where Sam is talking to the president and suggests that the attack was done through mind control, and Ross just kind of like brushes it off as if it's a ridiculous idea, which like normally yeah, mind control sounds a little ridiculous, but in a world where the Winter Soldier happened and we know that Bucky was mind controlled, I don't see why anyone would not take that seriously. Like, obviously, mind control is a real thing. They also, this is the first time in the MCU that we've got adamantium being both mentioned and shown. I feel like I wanted to be really excited about adamantium, but they've also been teasing X-Men since Endgame. So I don't know. It's kind of difficult, and I know they're like taking their time. They want to introduce mutants properly and not rush into it. But like, I don't know. There's a difference between building up to X-Men and just repeatedly teasing us with X-Men and then not doing anything with it. And it's hard to be excited, but I want to be excited. So I think adamantium's cool. I'm glad that's in the universe now. So that's a plus. As I said, the Isaiah Bradley storyline with him being locked up and Sam trying to find a way to exonerate him is really good. The part that I was mentioning overshadowing it is there's also this like secondary threat of like we might go to war with Japan, and obviously like I don't know, it didn't feel as an audience member like that was a realistic possibility. Like I didn't think that all of a sudden in the MCU the United States and Japan were going to go to war. So I don't know, it felt a little silly to make it seem so important. I think it had we just stuck with the, hey, Isaiah Bradley is going to get executed and we need to stop that, that would have been enough. Because, you know, personal stakes are good sometimes. Not everything needs to be this huge global thing. Oh, also, the scene that I was talking about in the beginning that looks really bad is when Sam is talking to the Hulk at the end, with the Red Hulk, when he is talking them down, and like, because they have the big fight and then they both get knocked down, and then he wakes up and talks to Red Hulk to turn him back into President Ross. And during that scene when he's talking, it looks like the most green screen friggin' Anthony Mackie wasn't even close to anyone else kind of scene ever. And I don't know, it for how good the rest of the movie looked, it really stood out how bad that scene looked. And then I think probably the most noticeable thing for me, and it honestly probably wouldn't even be that noticeable if they didn't continually talk about it, but they make a pretty big deal about how Sam did not take the super soldier serum. So he's just like a normal guy, Captain America. And like, yeah, he's got the wings and they're vibranium, and he has gadgets and tech to help him do all of this superhero stuff, but he himself is not super. And I think that could be a good thing, being like, yeah, he's kind of a everyman Captain America. He's not like this. There's a line in the movie where Bucky tells him, Steve gave people something to believe in, but you give people something to aspire to. Like, because you are not a super soldier, you are almost a better role model for people because it's more realistic. And I think that's a strong sentiment. But then there are so many times in the movie where Sam survives things that a normal person shouldn't survive. Like, even the opening scene, he's literally going faster than the speed of sound, dive bombs, and lands on the ground, does a superhero landing. But, like, going at that speed, if you're not a actual suit, and, like, it's one thing when Iron Man does it because you can be like, oh, the suit protects him. Sam Wilson doesn't have a fancy-ass suit. It's a little difficult to believe that he can just slam into the ground like that and be okay. Or, like, moments when he's getting knocked around, or, like, he gets stabbed several times and just, like, and gets a rib broken, and just, I don't know, he just, like, keeps fighting, which is, like, not something a normal human would be able to. Maybe with adrenaline you could get a little bit done, but I don't know. Some of it just seemed a little ridiculous, and I guess the biggest moment was actually when he was fighting the Hulk. He, at the end, like, the way he knocks the Red Hulk out is by stabbing you with one of his wings, and then because it's got the Wakandan technology where it can like absorb kinetic energy and then release it in a big burst, he like causes this big explosion that knocks out a Hulk, and yet he is pretty much fine. Like, he also goes unconscious for a little bit, but it's like movie unconscious, like nothing really bad happened. He gets back up, he's totally fine. And I feel like that kind of an explosion should have killed him. So, I don't know. If you're going to make a big deal about him not being a super soldier, then I think he should be taking more damage than he did. Make it feel like the stakes are higher. But yeah, that's what I thought about Captain America Brave New World. It's, like I said, a pretty good movie. It's passable. I am looking forward to seeing where things go in the future. They did mention in this movie, like, oh, we should bring the Avengers back. And so maybe they're like building back towards that would be nice. I would like to see a solid team. Not that I don't like the solo movies, but like there's always that lingering question of like something happens and you're like, well, where are all of the other superheroes? So I don't know. I'm would be happy to start working back towards something, because it feels like we've kind of just been floating around for a while with no direction. So hopefully the MCU can get back on track and start building some momentum. But yeah, that's what I've got. Thanks again for watching, and if you want to, please subscribe to this channel if you're not already, and check out my podcast with my co-host Luca. So yeah, just click one of those buttons there, and I'll see you next time.